Dr. Sarah Chen clutched her medical kit tighter as the transport ship shuddered through hyperspace. Around her, 7 towering figures sat in perfect silence, their scaled skin gleaming under the harsh overhead lights. The Cathari warriors were massive, each one standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and predatory yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. They wore sleek black armor that moved like liquid metal, and their weapons were works of art that could level city blocks. Sarah felt very small among them. "The human arrives tomorrow," she had overheard Commander Zethkar saying 3 days ago, his voice carrying the usual Cathari disdain for anything not born with claws and scales. "The Galactic Medical Council insists we need a xenobiologist for cross-species trauma care. Apparently our own medics are insufficient." The other warriors had clicked their approval, a sound like breaking glass. To them, Sarah wasn't a doctor with 15 years of emergency medicine experience. She wasn't the woman who had pioneered battlefield surgery techniques that saved thousands of lives across 12 different species. She was just the human they were forced to accept because politics demanded it. The transport lurched again, and Sarah checked her equipment one more time. Her medical scanner could read vital signs from any known sentient species. Her surgical tools adapted to different anatomies with micro-adjustments. Her pharmacy contained healing compounds that worked on silicon-based, carbon-based, and even energy-based life forms. She had prepared for everything. Everything except the crushing weight of being unwanted. Dr. Chen. The voice belonged to Sergeant Vextall, the squad's second-in-command. Unlike the others, he had spoken to her during the journey, though his words carried no warmth. "Commander Zethkar wishes to review your qualifications once more." Sarah nodded and made her way to the front of the transport. Commander Zethkar turned his massive head toward her, his 4 yellow eyes studying her like she was a curious insect. His main arms were crossed while his secondary arms held a data pad displaying her service record. "Dr. Chen," he said, her name sounding strange in his multi-toned voice. "You have served with human military units. You have treated human soldiers. You have worked in human hospitals. But you have never served with real warriors. With respect, Commander, I've served in combat zones for over a decade. I've performed surgery under enemy fire and—" "Against human enemies," Zethkar interrupted. "Against weapons that make small holes and cause bleeding. You have never faced sectar plasma weapons that burn through 3 feet of reinforced steel. You have never treated wounds from hive-mind neural disruptors that turn brains to liquid. You have never seen what happens when a Void Striker's energy beam hits living tissue." The other warriors clicked their approval again. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her voice steady. "That's why I'm here, Commander, to learn. To help." Zethkar's quad-jointed legs shifted, a sign of impatience. "You're here because the Galactic Medical Council believes diversity makes us stronger. You are here because politicians think different perspectives matter in war." He leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. "But war is not about perspectives, Dr. Chen. War is about survival. War is about being strong enough to protect those who cannot protect themselves. War is about making the hard choices that soft species cannot make." "I understand that, sir. Do you?" Zethkar's voice carried genuine curiosity now. "Humans are known for their emotional attachments. You form bonds with patients. You feel guilt when you cannot save everyone. You hesitate when hard choices must be made." His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a Cathari expression of mild amusement. "These are weaknesses that get real warriors killed." Sarah thought about every patient she had lost, every soldier who had died despite her best efforts, every impossible choice she had made in triage situations. The weight of those memories threatened to crush her, but she had learned to carry them. "Commander, emotion doesn't make us weak, it makes us human, and being human means we never stop fighting for each other." The transport suddenly dropped out of hyperspace, and through the viewports Sarah could see their destination. Firebase Echo, a military outpost built into an asteroid field at the edge of contested space. The base looked like a metal spider clinging to floating rocks, its defensive turrets tracking automatically for threats. "Firebase Echo is our home for the next 6 months," Zethkar announced to the squad. "Our mission is to provide rapid response for medical emergencies across the sector. Dr. Chen will serve as our xenobiologist and secondary medic. She will observe our procedures and adapt to our methods." As the transport docked, Sarah gathered her gear and prepared to disembark. The Cathari warriors moved with fluid precision, their forearms allowing them to carry equipment that would require 2 humans. Sarah struggled with her single set of arms but managed to keep up. The base's medical bay was impressive, filled with technology she had only read about in journals. Autosurgeons hung from the ceiling like mechanical spiders. Regeneration tanks lined the walls, glowing with healing energy. Diagnostic equipment hummed with power that could scan molecular structures in real time. "Your station," Bextel said, pointing to a smaller workstation in the corner. It was clearly an afterthought, equipped with human-compatible interfaces and scaled-down equipment. Sarah set down her kit and looked around the medical bay. This was where she would prove herself. This was where she would show these warriors that humans belonged among the galaxy's elite forces. She just didn't know how yet. Commander Zethkar approached her station, his massive frame casting shadows across her equipment. "Dr. Chen, understand this. I will not risk my warriors to protect your feelings. I will not slow our missions to accommodate your limitations. If you cannot keep up, you will be left behind. If you endanger my squad, you will be removed. Do I make myself clear?" "Crystal clear, Commander." "Good." Zethkar turned to leave, then paused. "For what it is worth, your medical record is impressive. For a human." As the squad dispersed to their quarters, Sarah began organizing her station. She had 6 months to prove that humans could stand among the galaxy's finest warriors. 6 months to show that emotion and compassion weren't weaknesses but strengths. She just hoped she would get the chance to prove it before someone got killed. The emergency alarm screamed through Firebase Echo at 0347 hours. Sarah jerked awake in her quarters, muscle memory from years of emergency medicine taking over. She was dressed and running toward the medical bay before her conscious mind fully processed what was happening. "All units. Code red medical emergency," the base's AI announced. "Freighter Galthok requesting immediate assistance. Multiple casualties, unknown pathogen exposure." Sarah arrived at the medical bay to find the Cathari squad already suiting up in hazmat gear. Commander Zethkar saw her approach and clicked his disapproval. "This is not a training exercise. Dr. Chen, return to your quarters." "With respect, Commander, I'm part of this squad's medical team. You are untested. This situation requires experience with exotic pathogens." Sarah walked to her station and began pulling up data on her screens. The Galthok is a Torvani cargo vessel. Torvani physiology is silicon carbide based with crystalline neural structures. Their immune systems operate on frequencies that can interfere with standard Cathari medical scanners. She turned to face the commander. "I spent 2 years studying xenobiology specifically because situations like this occur." Zethkar's 4 eyes studied her for a long moment. "You will observe only. Do not interfere with our procedures." "Understood, sir." The medical transport launched from Firebase Echo 12 minutes later. Sarah sat in the back, surrounded by Cathari warriors who moved with purpose and precision. She watched them prepare their weapons alongside their medical equipment, a reminder that emergency response in contested space always carried risks. The Galthok drifted dead in space, its hull scorched and pitted from whatever had attacked it. Emergency lights blinked weakly through cracked viewports. The transport docked carefully and the squad moved through the airlock into chaos. Bodies lay scattered in the corridors. The Torvani crew members looked like walking crystals that had been shattered and reformed, their translucent skin showing internal organs that pulsed with unnatural colors. The air itself seemed to shimmer with contamination. "Biological weapon," Vextel announced, reading his scanner. "Unknown compound, highly aggressive." The squad's primary medic, War Surgeon Kexman, approached the nearest casualty. His scanning equipment buzzed and clicked as it tried to analyze the Torvani's condition. Cellular breakdown at the molecular level. Nervous system crystallization is accelerating beyond normal parameters. Sarah watched from the background as Kexman worked. The Cathari medic was skilled, but his equipment kept giving conflicting readings. The Torvani physiology was confusing his scanners. Just as Sarah had predicted. "War Surgeon," she said quietly, "may I suggest adjusting your scanner's frequency to compensate for the silicon carbide interference?" Kexman's quad arms moved impatiently. "Human, your species' scanners are too primitive to understand the complexity of this pathogen." "Actually, sir, I believe the pathogen is designed to confuse carbon-based scanners. It's using the Torvani's own crystalline structure to hide its true nature." Commander Zethkar stepped forward. "Explain." Sarah moved closer to the casualties, her own scanner in hand. The Torvani breathed through crystalline filters in their chest cavities. The pathogen is mimicking their natural cellular structure, making it invisible to standard medical equipment. But if we adjust our scanning frequency to match Torvani neural patterns, she made adjustments to her scanner and ran it over the nearest casualty. Suddenly, the readings became clear. There, the pathogen is actually quite simple. It's a synthetic protein that bonds with silicon-based neural networks. It's not trying to kill them quickly. It's trying to rewrite their brain structure. Kexmoon studied Sarah's readings, his 4 eyes blinking in surprise. This is impossible. How did your primitive equipment detect what ours could not? Because sometimes different isn't worse, War Surgeon. It's just different. Working together, they were able to identify the pathogen's mechanism. Sarah's knowledge of Torvani physiology, combined with Kethari medical technology, created treatments that neither could have developed alone. The synthetic protein could be neutralized using a combination of frequency therapy and chemical inhibitors. As they worked to save the crew, more complications arose. The ship's life support was failing, contaminated air was spreading the pathogen, and several Torvani were entering critical condition. The Kethari warriors moved with mechanical efficiency, but Sarah noticed something they missed. "Commander," she said, "we need to evacuate the ship's young." "What young?" Zethkar demanded. "Torvani reproduce through crystalline budding. The adult casualties we're treating all show signs of recent budding. Their offspring will be in the ship's nursery, probably in suspended animation to protect them from the pathogen." Zethkar clicked his doubt. "If they are in suspended animation, they are safe. Not from life support failure. Torvani young require specific atmospheric conditions to survive suspended animation. If those systems fail, they'll die within hours." The commander studied Sarah for a moment, then turned to his squad. "Vextal, take Chen and locate the nursery. The rest of us will continue treating the crew." Sarah led Vextal through the damaged ship, following her knowledge of Torvani vessel design. They found the nursery 3 decks down, where dozens of small crystalline pods lined the walls. Each pod contained a Torvani child in various stages of development. "The atmospheric controls are failing," Vextal observed, reading his scanner. Sarah quickly connected her portable life support unit to the nursery's systems. "This will buy us time, but we need to get them to the medical bay for proper treatment." They worked together to carefully transport the pods, Vextal's forearms allowing him to carry more while Sarah monitored each child's vital signs. As they made their final trip, the ship's hull groaned ominously. "Structural failure imminent," the transport's AI announced. They evacuated just as the Galthok broke apart, its weakened hull finally surrendering to the stress of whatever had attacked it. Back on the transport, Sarah worked alongside the Kethari medical team to stabilize both the adult crew and their children. When they returned to Firebase Echo, 47 Torvani were alive who would have died without intervention. The crew was recovering, the children were safe, and the pathogen had been identified and countered. In the medical bay's decontamination chamber, Commander Zethkar approached Sarah as she cleaned her equipment. "Dr. Chen." "Yes, Commander. Your actions today were adequate." Coming from a Kethari warrior, adequate was high praise. Sarah nodded respectfully. "Thank you, sir." "However," Zethkar continued, "you are still just a medic." Today was medical work. Combat is different. In combat, there is no time for cultural sensitivity or cross-species cooperation. In combat, only the strong survive. Sarah finished packing her kit. "I understand, Commander." But as she watched the Kethari warriors discuss the mission, she noticed something they probably didn't realize. When the crisis had occurred, when lives were at stake, they had listened to her suggestions. They had adapted their methods. They had worked as a team. Maybe, Sarah thought, they weren't as different as they believed. She just hoped she would never have to test that theory in actual combat. 3 weeks after the Galthok incident, Sarah had settled into a routine at Firebase Echo. The Kethari squad treated her with professional respect now, though she still felt the invisible barriers between human and warrior. She was useful, they admitted, but useful like a sophisticated tool rather than a trusted teammate. That changed when the Sectar attacked mining station Delta 7. "All units, emergency deployment," Commander Zethkar announced over the base's communication system. "Sectar raiders have breached mining station Delta 7. Multiple casualties reported. Medical support required immediately." Sarah grabbed her emergency kit and ran for the transport bay. The Kethari squad was already loading weapons and armor, their movements sharp with combat readiness. Unlike the medical emergency on the Galthok, this mission carried the promise of violence. "Dr. Chen," Zethkar called out as she approached the transport. "This is a combat mission. The station is under active attack. You will remain on the transport until the area is secured. Commander, if there are casualties, you will remain on the transport until ordered otherwise." His 4 eyes fixed on her with absolute authority. The Sektar are not a pathogen you can analyze. They are killers who take pleasure in causing pain. This is work for warriors. The transport launched toward Delta 7 with Sarah strapped into the medical bay while the Kithari squad checked their weapons in the main compartment. Through the dividing screen, she could see them preparing for battle. Their casual conversation from previous missions was gone, replaced by focused silence. Mining Station Delta 7 had been built into a large asteroid rich in quantum crystals. It housed 300 workers from a dozen different species, all extracting the rare materials needed for faster-than-light travel. Now it was a battlefield. The station's emergency beacon painted a grim picture, hull breaches on multiple levels, life support failing in several sections, communications sporadic, and somewhere inside Sektar raiders were hunting the survivors. The Sektar were nightmare creatures from the galaxy's edge. 8 feet tall with chitinous exoskeletons, they had evolved from predatory insects on a death world. They didn't conquer territory or claim resources. They simply killed because killing brought them joy. Their weapons were designed not just to kill efficiently, but to cause maximum suffering first. "Transport Alpha 7, this is Station Delta 7 Control." A desperate voice crackled over the communication system. "We have survivors trapped in Section C-12. Sektar are hunting them floor by floor. Please hurry." Commander Zethkar's voice was ice cold. "Understood, Control. We are 2 minutes out." The transport docked at Delta 7's emergency airlock, and Sarah watched through the medical bay's monitors as the Kithari squad deployed. They moved like liquid death, their 4 arms allowing them to carry both primary and secondary weapons while maintaining perfect balance. Their black armor shifted and flowed as they advanced through the station's corridors. Sarah's medical bay was equipped with remote monitoring systems that let her track the squad's vital signs and see through their helmet cameras. She watched them move through devastated sections of the station, past evidence of Sektar brutality. "Multiple civilian casualties in Section B-14, Vextel reported. "Dr. Chen, we are sending wounded to your position." The first casualties arrived within minutes. A Gralian engineer with 3 of his 4 limbs severed by Sektar plasma weapons. A human mining supervisor with burns covering 60% of her body. A Zilani administrator whose blue skin had turned gray from blood loss. Sarah worked frantically to stabilize them, her medical equipment adapting to different anatomies as she fought to save lives. The wounds were unlike anything she had seen before. Sektar weapons didn't just damage tissue. They seemed designed to prevent healing. The plasma burns continued eating through flesh even after the initial injury. The cutting implements left molecular damage that resisted standard medical treatment. "More wounded incoming," came Kexman's voice. "Dr. Chen, we have a Kithari casualty." Sarah's blood ran cold. If the Sektar had managed to seriously wound a Kithari warrior, the situation was worse than anyone had realized. The casualty was Warrior Texan, the squad's youngest member. A Sektar neural disruptor had hit him in the side, and the weapon was designed specifically to target nervous systems. His forearms were convulsing uncontrollably, and his yellow eyes showed no recognition of his surroundings. Neural pathway disruption, Sarah diagnosed quickly. The weapon is sending chaotic signals through his nervous system. If I can't stabilize him soon, the feedback will cause permanent brain damage. She worked desperately to counter the neural disruption, adapting human brain surgery techniques for Kithari physiology. It was dangerous work, requiring precise timing and steady hands while the transport shook from nearby explosions. "Dr. Chen," Commander Zethkar's voice came through the communication system. "Status on Texan?" "Working on it, Commander. The neural disruptor is more sophisticated than anything in our medical databases. I'm having to improvise. Work faster. We need every warrior mobile. The Sektar have taken the main mining facility. They're executing hostages." Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision, guided by years of emergency medicine experience. She managed to isolate the chaotic neural signals and gradually restore normal brain function. Texhan's eyes cleared and his arms stopped convulsing. "Dr. Chen," he said weakly, "you saved my life. Just doing my job. Warrior, but as she continued treating casualties, Sarah could hear the battle intensifying through the communication system. The Cathari squad was outnumbered and facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate their tactics. Commander, Vextal's voice carried strain. They're driving us back toward the transport. We have civilian casualties we cannot reach. How many casualties? Zethkar demanded. Estimated 30 survivors trapped in the central mining chamber. But the Sektar have established defensive positions. We cannot advance without taking heavy losses. Sarah listened to the tactical discussion while continuing to treat wounded. The Cathari were brave and skilled, but they were thinking like warriors. They were planning frontal assaults and tactical flanking maneuvers. They weren't thinking like medics. Commander, she said, activating the communication system. I have an idea. Dr. Chen, maintain radio silence unless you have medical updates. Sir, this is a medical update. I've been studying the Sektar weapon signatures. Their neural disruptors and plasma weapons create specific energy patterns. I think I can modify our medical scanners to track those patterns. There was silence on the communication system for a moment. Explain. Sektar weapons leave energy residue that our medical equipment can detect. If I can map their positions using medical scanners, you could plan your approach to avoid their defensive positions. Dr. Chen, Sethkar's voice carried warning. This is a combat situation. Medical personnel do not contribute to tactical planning. With respect, Commander, medical personnel know how to save lives. Sometimes that means thinking differently about problems. Another long pause. Then Vextal's voice. Commander, our current approach is not working. Perhaps we should consider the human suggestion. Sarah held her breath, waiting for the response. Around her, the wounded lay in various stages of recovery, living proof that cooperation between species could accomplish what neither could achieve alone. Dr. Chen, Commander Zethkar finally said, upload your scanning modifications to our tactical systems. But you will remain in the medical bay. This is still a combat mission. Understood, Commander. Sarah quickly modified the medical scanning protocols and transmitted them to the squad's equipment. Within minutes, they had a detailed map of Sektar positions throughout the mining facility. Remarkable, Vextal reported. We can see their entire defensive network. There is a path through the maintenance tunnels that avoids their primary positions. As the squad prepared for their new approach, Sarah continued treating casualties. But she couldn't shake the feeling that her real test was still coming. The Sektar were clever and vicious. They wouldn't be defeated by better tactics alone. Something told her that before this mission was over, she would have to decide just how far she was willing to go to save lives. Sarah's tactical modifications worked perfectly. Using the medical scanners to track Sektar weapon signatures, the Cathari squad successfully infiltrated the mining facility through maintenance tunnels. They rescued 17 civilians in the first hour and established a secure perimeter around the main mining chamber, where the remaining hostages were trapped. But the Sektar had a surprise waiting. Commander, this is problematic, Vextal reported from inside the facility. The main chamber has been rigged with explosives. The Sektar are not trying to capture resources. They are planning to collapse the entire facility. Sarah listened through the communication system while treating a steady stream of wounded. The picture being painted was grim. The Sektar had taken the mining station not for its quantum crystals, but to lure rescue teams into a trap. They wanted to destroy both the facility and anyone who came to help. Estimated time to detonation? Commander Zethkar asked, unknown. The charges appear to be on a dead man switch. If we eliminate the Sektar, the explosives detonate automatically. And if we do not eliminate them, they will execute the hostages and detonate anyway. They are broadcasting the executions to nearby systems as psychological warfare. Sarah's hands paused in treating a Zelani worker's burns. She had seen many horrible things in her medical career, but the casual cruelty of the Sektar was beyond her experience. They killed not for resources or territory, but for the pure joy of causing suffering. We need a new approach, Commander Zethkar announced. Dr. Chen, can your medical scanners determine the location of the explosive charges? I can try, Commander. The charges would have different energy signatures than weapons. Sarah quickly reprogrammed her scanners again, this time looking for the electromagnetic patterns of Sektar demolition charges. The results were disturbing. The entire mining facility was wired with enough explosives to turn the asteroid into dust. Commander, the charges are everywhere. but they're all connected to a central control unit in the mining chamber's control room. If someone could reach that control unit and disable it, the control room is at the center of sector defensive positions, Vextal reported. It would require a direct assault through their strongest fortifications. Casualties would be severe, War Surgeon Kexman added. We would lose at least half the squad, and success would not be guaranteed. Sarah continued her scans, looking for alternatives. There had to be another way. In medical school, they taught that there was always another way if you were creative enough to find it. Commander, she said suddenly, what if we didn't assault their positions? What if we made them come to us? Explain. The sector are using the hostages as bait. But what if we gave them better bait? Something they wanted more than terrorizing civilians? Silence on the communication system. Sarah could almost feel the Cathari warriors considering her words. The sector prize combat above all else, Vextal said slowly. They seek worthy opponents. But what could we offer that would be more appealing than their current position? Sarah's mind raced through everything she had learned about sector psychology. They were predators who valued strength and despised weakness. They took pleasure in hunting those who couldn't fight back. But they also respected worthy enemies. Commander, what if we offered them single combat, one-on-one fights for the lives of the hostages? Dr. Chen, Zethkar's voice carried sharp disapproval. The sector do not honor agreements. They would accept our challenge, kill our warrior, and execute the hostages anyway. Not if we made it interesting for them. Not if we gave them something they've never seen before. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the transport's proximity alarms screamed. On the external monitors, Sarah could see sector reinforcements approaching. 3 more ships, each carrying additional raiders. Commander, we have company, the transport pilot announced. Multiple sector vessels incoming. Our window for evacuation is closing. All units begin immediate withdrawal, Zethkar ordered. We cannot hold against reinforced sector positions. Commander, wait. Sarah's voice cut through the tactical chatter. What about the hostages? The hostages are lost, Dr. Chen. We cannot save them without sacrificing the entire squad. Sarah stared at the medical bay's monitors, watching the vital signs of the wounded she had treated. These were people who had been saved because the Cathari squad had been willing to risk their lives. People who would have died if the warriors had made the safe choice. Commander, request permission to transfer to the facility. Denied. Medical personnel do not deploy into active combat zones. Sir, with respect, I'm not asking as medical personnel. Sarah's voice was steady despite the fear racing through her veins. I'm asking as someone who took an oath to save lives. Dr. Chen, you will remain on the transport. That is an order. Sarah looked at the wounded around her. At Texan, who was alive because she had been willing to try something new. At the human mining supervisor, who was breathing because Sarah had adapted alien medical technology to human physiology. At all the lives that had been saved through cooperation and refusing to accept that some people couldn't be helped. She walked to the transport's weapon locker. Dr. Chen, what are you doing? Kexman's voice carried alarm. Sarah removed a Cathari assault rifle from the locker. The weapon was designed for 4-armed warriors, but she had studied its operation during quiet moments on Firebase Echo. It was heavy in her 2 hands, but not impossible to manage. I'm going to save those hostages. Dr. Chen, return to your station immediately, Commander Zethkar ordered. Commander, the sector have never faced a human in single combat. They don't understand our psychology. They think emotion makes us weak, just like you did 3 weeks ago. Sarah checked the rifle's power cell and adjusted its weight distribution. But you've seen what human emotion can accomplish when it's focused on saving lives. You will be killed instantly. The sector are born killers. Maybe. But while they're focused on killing me, your squad can reach the control room and disable those charges. And if I can last long enough, if I can make them curious about human capabilities, maybe I can buy enough time for everyone to get out alive. Sarah moved toward the transport's airlock. The rifle held awkwardly but determinedly in her hands. The hostages deserve the same chance we gave the wounded. The chance to be saved by someone who refuses to give up. Dr. Chen, stand down. That is a direct order. Sarah paused at the airlock controls. Commander, I've followed orders my entire career. I've stayed in my lane, done my job, and trusted others to make the hard choices. But sometimes the hard choice is knowing when to stop following orders and start following your conscience. She activated the airlock sequence. Tell my family I died doing what humans do best, refusing to leave people behind. The airlock cycled and Sarah Chen stepped into the corridors of Mining Station Delta 7. Behind her, she could hear Commander Zethkar's voice over the communication system, sharp with something that might have been respect. All units, change of mission. Dr. Chen is providing distraction. We move on the control room in 30 seconds. Sarah smiled grimly as she made her way toward the mining chamber. She was about to show the galaxy something that Cathari warriors and Sectar raiders had never seen before. A human who was willing to die not for glory or strength, but simply because it was the right thing to do. The Sectar were about to learn why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy when they decided that someone needed to be saved. Sarah moved through the damaged corridors of Mining Station Delta 7, with her heart hammering against her ribs. The Cathari assault rifle felt impossibly heavy in her two hands, designed as it was for warriors with 4 arms and twice her strength. But she had committed to this path, and there was no turning back. The mining chamber's entrance loomed ahead, its blast doors partially torn away by Sectar explosives. Through the gaps, she could hear the sounds that would haunt her dreams if she lived through this. The terrified whimpers of hostages and the chittering laughter of their captors. "Sectar raiders," Sarah called out, her voice carrying into the chamber. "I challenge you to single combat." The chittering stopped. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of multiple insectoid legs skittering across metal flooring. A Sectar warrior appeared in the doorway, 8 feet of chitinous nightmare with compound eyes that reflected the emergency lighting like black jewels. "What is this?" The creature spoke in heavily accented galactic standard, its mandibles clicking with each word. "A soft skin comes to play warrior? You carry weapons you cannot use, little flesh thing." "I carry weapons I'm willing to use," Sarah replied, raising the rifle as steadily as she could manage. "I offer single combat for the lives of your prisoners." More Sectar appeared, drawn by curiosity. Sarah counted at least 6 of them, each carrying weapons that could have leveled a building. Behind them, she caught glimpses of the hostages, terrified civilians bound and huddled in the center of the mining chamber. Single combat? The lead Sectar clicked its amusement. "You are not a warrior. You smell of medicine and fear. You carry yourself like prey. Then it should be easy for you to defeat me." Sarah stepped closer to the entrance, keeping her rifle trained on the lead Sectar. "Unless the mighty Sectar are afraid of one human medic?" The insult had its intended effect. The Sectar's chittering became angry, and its plasma weapon powered up with a high-pitched whine, but it didn't fire immediately. Like all predators, the Sectar enjoyed playing with their prey. "Very well, soft skin. I am Hive Killer Zekthos. I have slain 300 enemies in single combat. I will add your death to my tally, and then I will kill your hostages slowly, one by one, while you watch from whatever afterlife your weak species believes in. We'll see about that." Sarah activated her communication system one last time. "Commander, I'm engaging the enemy. Control room should be accessible from the maintenance shaft we mapped earlier." "Dr. Chen," Zethkar's voice carried an emotion she had never heard from him before. "You do not have to do this." "Yes, I do, Commander. It's what humans do." She closed the communication channel and faced Zekthos. The Sectar had moved into the corridor, its 4 arms holding both a plasma rifle and a vibro blade that hummed with lethal energy. Behind it, the other raiders watched with predatory interest. "Begin, little prey," Zekthos chittered. "Show me how soft skins die." The Sectar fired first, a bolt of superheated plasma that scorched the air where Sarah had been standing. But she was already moving, rolling behind a damaged support beam as her medical training kicked in. She had spent years learning to work under pressure, to maintain fine motor control while adrenaline flooded her system. Sarah returned fire, her shots going wide but forcing Zekthos to take cover. The Cathari weapon kicked harder than anything she had trained with, but she adjusted her grip and tried again. "You cannot hit what you cannot see," the Sectar taunted, moving with insectoid speed between pieces of debris. Sarah didn't waste breath on a reply. She was counting shots, timing the Sectar's movements, looking for patterns. This wasn't about being a better warrior than Zekthos. This was about staying alive long enough for the Cathari squad to complete their mission. The Sectar closed distance with frightening speed, its vibro blade slashing through the air where Sarah's head had been. She stumbled backward, firing rapidly to create space between them. One shot actually connected, burning through the creature's chitinous armor and drawing a shriek of pain and rage. Impossible. Zekthos snarled. You are not a warrior. How do you wound me? Lucky shot, Sarah gasped, already moving again as plasma fire chased her across the corridor. But it hadn't been luck. In those split seconds of combat, Sarah had realized something important. The Sektar fought like apex predators because that's what they were. They relied on speed, strength, and aggression to overwhelm their enemies. They expected their opponents to fight back the same way. Sarah fought like a medic. She used cover like a surgeon used precision instruments. She conserved her ammunition like she rationed supplies in a field hospital. She read Zekthos's movements like she read patient vital signs, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Most importantly, she fought like someone who had seen too much death to be afraid of her own. You fight strangely, soft skin, Zekthos admitted, circling her like a predator testing unfamiliar prey. You do not attack when you should. You do not retreat when you must. What are you? I'm someone who doesn't give up. Through her earpiece, Sarah could hear the Cathari squad moving through the facility. They were making progress toward the control room, but they needed more time. She had to keep the Sektar focused on her. Tell me, Zekthos, she said, backing slowly toward a junction in the corridor. How many of your kills were warriors? How many could actually fight back? The Sektar's mandibles clicked angrily. All who face me are warriors in their final moments. No, they're not. They're just people who ran out of places to run. Sarah's rifle was getting low on power, but she kept it trained on the creature. That's what makes you a coward, not a warrior. Zekthos shrieked with rage and charged, all pretense of tactical combat abandoned. Its four arms moved in a blur of plasma fire and slashing blades, forcing Sarah to dive desperately for cover. She almost made it. The vibroblade caught her across the left shoulder, tearing through her medical uniform and the flesh beneath. Pain exploded through her body, but her medical training helped her assess the damage even as she rolled away from follow-up attacks. Deep laceration, significant blood loss, but no major arteries severed. First blood to the hive killer. Zekthos chittered triumphantly. Now you begin to understand fear, soft skin. Sarah pressed her hand against the wound, trying to slow the bleeding. Around the corner, she could hear the other Sektar chittering their approval. They thought the fight was over. They were wrong. Commander, she whispered into her communication system. Status? Approaching the control room. 2 minutes to breach. Copy that. Sarah checked her rifle's power cell. 3 shots left, maybe 4 if she was lucky. Zekthos was wounded but still dangerous, and the other Sektar were getting restless. If they decided to join the fight, she was dead. But if she could just last 2 more minutes and still alive, little prey, Zekthos called out. Come, let us finish this. I grow bored with your struggles. Sarah stepped around the corner, rifle raised, blood soaking her left sleeve. The Sektar had positioned itself between her and the mining chamber, blocking any escape route. You want to finish this? Sarah's voice was steady despite the pain. Fine, but first tell me something. When you kill those hostages, when you broadcast their deaths to terrorize other worlds, what do you think will happen? Other soft skins will fear us as they should. No. Sarah smiled, and for the first time since the fight began, Zekthos seemed uncertain. They'll remember that one human medic stood against 6 Sektar raiders and made you bleed. They'll remember that humans don't abandon each other, and they'll come for you. She fired her remaining shots not at Zekthos but at the corridor's ceiling supports. Decades of medical experience had taught her to see structural weaknesses, and the mining station's hull had been damaged by the initial attack. The ceiling collapsed in a thunderous crash, separating Sarah from the Sektar and creating a barrier of twisted metal and debris. It wouldn't stop them for long, but it didn't need to. Control room secured. Commander Zethkar's voice came through her earpiece. Charges disarmed. Beginning hostage extraction. Sarah slumped against the wall, her strength finally giving out. She had done it. She had bought them the time they needed. As consciousness faded, she could hear Zekthos shrieking with rage on the other side of the debris, trying to claw through the wreckage to reach her. But his voice was growing distant, and Sarah's last coherent thought was that she had finally shown them what humans could do when someone needed to be saved. Sarah woke up in the medical bay of Firebase Echo 3 days later. Her left shoulder was immobilized in a regeneration field, and various monitoring devices tracked her vital signs with gentle precision. But she was alive, which was more than she had expected when she stepped through that airlock. Dr. Chen. The voice belonged to Commander Zethkar, though it carried a tone she had never heard from him before. You have awakened. Sarah turned her head to see the massive Cathari warrior sitting beside her medical bed, his forearms folded in what she had learned was a gesture of respect. His yellow eyes studied her with an expression that was difficult to read. "The hostages?" she asked, her voice hoarse from the medical procedures. "All 43 survived. The Sektar were extracted before they could regroup." Zethkar paused, his quad-jointed legs shifting slightly. "You were unconscious when we pulled you from the wreckage. The Sektar had nearly reached you. Zekthos? Dead. He died trying to claw through a ton of debris to reach one wounded human medic." The commander's head tilted slightly. "The other Sektar fled when our reinforcements arrived. They had never seen their hive killer, so obsessed with a single opponent." Sarah tried to sit up, wincing as the movement pulled at her shoulder. "How long was I out?" 72 hours. Your injuries were severe, but more importantly, your actions have created complications." "What kind of complications?" Commander Zethkar stood, his massive frame casting familiar shadows across the medical bay. "The rescue of mining station Delta 7 has been reported across the galaxy. The story of a human medic who challenged 6 Sektar raiders to single combat has reached every major news network." Sarah felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. "I wasn't looking for publicity, Commander. I know. But publicity has found you nonetheless." Zethkar began pacing, a habit she had noticed when he was working through complex problems. "The Galactic Medical Council has received over 3,000 requests for human medical personnel to be assigned to various military units. The Human Alliance has been invited to join the Elite Combat Medical Program, and the Sektar have placed a blood bounty on your head worth more than most starships." "The Sektar? They consider you an affront to their reputation. A soft-skinned medic who wounded a hive killer and lived to tell about it challenges everything they believe about strength and weakness." Zethkar stopped pacing and looked directly at her. "You have become a symbol, Dr. Chen, whether you wanted to or not." The medical bay doors opened and the rest of the Cathari squad entered. Vextal, Kexman, Texhan, and the others formed a semicircle around her bed. Each warrior performed the Cathari gesture of deep respect. All forearms crossed over their chests. "We have come to offer formal acknowledgement," Vextal announced. "Dr. Sarah Chen, your actions at Mining Station Delta 7 demonstrate that courage is not limited to any single species. You have shown us that strength comes in forms we did not recognize." War Surgeon Kexman stepped forward. "I have served with Cathari warriors for 30 years. I have seen bravery in many forms, but I have never seen someone willingly walk into certain death with such calm determination. Your medical oath to save lives superseded your instinct for self-preservation. This is a form of strength we did not understand." Texhan, the young warrior whose life Sarah had saved weeks earlier, moved closer to her bed. "Dr. Chen, when the neural disruptor hit me, I was afraid. I thought I would die far from home, forgotten by everyone except my clutchmates, but you would not let me die. You fought for my life with the same determination you showed against Zekthos." "I was just doing my job," Sarah said quietly. "No," Commander Zethkar corrected. "You were being human, and we finally understand what that means." The commander moved to the side of her bed, his 4 eyes meeting her too. "For weeks we believed your emotional attachments made you weak. We thought your reluctance to accept casualties was a flaw. We saw your species' emphasis on cooperation and empathy as evolutionary disadvantages. And now we understand that humans do not fight in spite of their emotions. You fight because of them. Your anger at injustice, your grief over loss, your hope for something better. These do not make you weak. They make you dangerous to anyone who threatens what you care about." Zethkar gestured to his squad. "Cathari warriors are taught to accept loss as inevitable. We fight bravely, but we know when a battle cannot be won. We calculate odds and make rational decisions about when to retreat. That sounds reasonable. It is reasonable, but it is not human." The commander's voice carried something that might have been admiration. "Humans do not accept that some people cannot be saved. You fight impossible battles not because you can win, but because someone needs you to try. This is why the Sektar fear you now. This is why your species will always surprise their enemies." Sarah absorbed this, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. "Commander, what happens now?" "To the squad, I mean?" "The squad has been reassigned," Vextal answered. "We are now the galaxy's first integrated combat medical unit. Cathari warriors working alongside human medical personnel, Your actions have proven that such cooperation produces results neither species could achieve alone. And you're okay with that? Having humans as equals instead of just useful tools? Commander Zethkar's mandibles moved in what Sarah had learned was the Cathari equivalent of a smile. Dr. Chen, no one who witnessed your stand against Zekthos will ever again make the mistake of underestimating human determination. You have earned something that few beings in this galaxy possess, the absolute respect of Cathari warriors. Over the following weeks, as Sarah recovered from her injuries, she watched the changes her actions had set in motion. Human medics began serving with elite military units throughout the galaxy. The hybrid medical techniques developed by combining human knowledge with alien technology saved thousands of lives. Most importantly, the galaxy began to understand that humans brought something unique to the galactic community. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the medal ceremony hall of the Galactic Military Command. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to witness the presentation of the Galactic Medal of Valor, the highest honor that could be bestowed on military personnel. As Admiral Kethvul placed the medal around her neck, he spoke words that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Chen, you have shown us that true strength is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. You have proven that the greatest warriors are sometimes those who pick up weapons not for glory, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves. In the audience, Commander Zethkar and his squad stood at attention, their forearms raised in the Cathari salute of highest honor. When the ceremony ended, they approached her with expressions of fierce pride. Dr. Chen, Commander Zethkar said, the Cathari have a saying, a true warrior is known not by the enemies they defeat, but by the friends who would follow them into the void. He gestured to his squad, then to the hundreds of beings who had gathered to honor her. Today you have an entire galaxy willing to follow you. That is the measure of what you accomplished when you picked up that rifle. Sarah looked out at the assembled crowd, at species from across the galaxy who had come to understand that strength came in many forms. She thought about the 43 hostages who were alive because someone had been willing to try the impossible. She thought about all the lives that would be saved in the future because different species had learned to work together. Commander, she said, I hope I never have to pick up a rifle again. So do I, Dr. Chen, but if you ever do, every warrior in this galaxy will remember what happened at Mining Station Delta 7. They will remember that humans do not abandon each other, and they will remember that sometimes the most dangerous person in a fight is the one who refuses to give up. As they left the ceremony hall together, Sarah realized that she had found her place in the galaxy, not as just a medic, but as proof that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their warfare, but their absolute refusal to let each other down. The SEALs would never forget what she had done. But more importantly, the galaxy would never again underestimate what humans could accomplish when someone needed to be saved. In the end, that was the legacy Sarah Chen had never intended to create. The understanding that humans were most dangerous when they were motivated by love instead of hate, by hope instead of fear, and by the simple, unshakable belief that every life was worth saving, even if it meant picking up a rifle to prove it.